Completely unbelievable. That is how a civil defence manager is describing the state of roads around Te Tairawhiti.
We've built roads, there's no bottom to them anymore.
Coromandel businesses are facing another massive bump in the road, or rather a slip, that Waka Kotahi is working overtime to clear from State Highway 25.
The truckies from Gisborne with essential supplies face a long detour after slips closed State Highway 2 to the north.
Road closure after road closure. Storm damage leaving the ground these roads are built on.
Like melted ice cream almost. It's just that soft and porridgey.
And that means another massive fixer job.
Contractors working around the clock to reconnect the region.
Cleaning out the drains and that silk. Yeah, trying to help the people around their houses in it.
Kia ora, I'm Tom Kitchen, and today on The Detail, what does it take to get a storm-damaged road back open? And with major weather events happening more frequently, can we make our highways more resilient for the future? First up, two people in charge of looking after our state highways.
I'm Rob Campbell. I'm the Regional Manager for Maintenance and Operations of Waka Kotahi, and I look after the Waikato and Bay of Plenty region.
I'm Jacqueline Henkin. I'm the Regional Manager for Maintenance and Operations at Waka Kotahi for the Central North Island.
And it's not exactly an easy job.
It's very, very complicated. Obviously, we've got a very large program of maintenance and operational works going on all of the time, and that keeps us very, very busy. And then add on to that things like the cyclones coming through, storms, events that happen on the highway, accidents, and to keep the network running is a big challenge for us and our teams.
So let's just say there's been a huge storm. We've got slip after slip. There's so many roads that are shut.
The main highway into Gisborne from the north is closed after a major slip.
State Highway 1 at Dome Valley, north of Auckland, will remain closed today while the clean-up from a slip continues.
Karangahaki Gorge closed. The strip that they've just come past this morning has fell down.
What do you do first?
I guess the first thing is to make sure everyone is safe. And then in the background, the people who don't have to be out there on the roads get on calls, Zoom calls, Teams calls, and start making a plan, understanding where we're at, the state of our networks.
Yeah, well, how do you build that picture? How do you get your information in?
A number of areas, and it's intel from contractors, from the public, from councils, from civil defence. There's multiple avenues that we build up that picture, because there's some areas in Tairawhiti, like where when Cyclone Gabrielle hit, they had no access and no internet, and Hawke's Bay ended up being the same as well.
And then really what we're trying to do is get a road open as quickly as we can. As soon as we understand that it's shut, what are our options to get people to and from their businesses, from their homes to their hospital appointments in a safe way? So we'll start looking straight away to, what are our options to reopen a piece of road or have a detour around it?
Yeah, that's never an easy thing. I mean, you might be able to open a road simply, or as we've seen this year, it might be much more complicated. So how do you manage that?
It's something that you do almost a quick and dirty job initially, get the access open and allow people through. Then we need to take some time. We need to actually starting to analyse, well, what's the cause of the problem? And obviously water is a big one, but is it surface water, groundwater? Where's the water coming from? Where's it going to? How's it affecting the material? So we have to start actually understanding what the road or the material around the road and the hill above it and the hill below it, what are they doing? What's causing the issue? So we can start making a plan to not only fix the road, but solve the longer term issue. Then we need to start moving to, okay, so what should we do to invest in this road? Our suppliers, we have our professional service suppliers who work with us. So these are the geotech experts and the engineers and designers. So they're true subject matter experts in what they do. So they give us great advice as to what our options might be, what the type of construction might be that's necessary to get this thing reopened. And then our suppliers, the physical works guys, so the people that we engage, they do the physical works, and this is where their true expertise lies in doing that safely, having all the material, the equipment, and the understanding to do that job.
And it's been a very busy year for the people who go out there and actually fix the roads.
It's 2 steps forward, 1 step back at the moment.
This is Ben Buttermore, the Coromandel Recovery Manager for Higgins.
It can become demoralising. Literally, it's a colloquial term, but it's a rinse and repeat cycle at the moment, isn't it? Dry for a couple of days and then the next onset of a storm event.
So let's just go through how it works fixing a road, shall we? So there's a big, huge storm and it damages the road significantly. Where does Higgins fit in?
Higgins Contractors has the East Waikato Network Outcomes contract with Waka Kotahi, the New Zealand Transport Agency. So what that means is that Higgins Contractors, along with our partner, local subcontractors, etc., we maintain the state highway road network for Waka Kotahi. That includes everything from, the classic roadworks that you see, the resurfacing or the road rehabilitations, through to cleaning drainage, picking up litter, that kind of thing. But in the context of storm events, it means that Higgins is out there, rain, hail, hopefully not snow, but certainly ice in the East Waikato, to remove detritus from the road, cut through slips, fix underslips, maintain safe cordons at flooding sites, that kind of thing, to ensure that the road is as safe as possible.
One of the big projects Ben's worked on is a huge underslip on State Highway 25 between Hikawai and Whangamata. In case you're confused, this is different to nearby State Highway 25A, where the road has completely disappeared, and you'll hear more about that soon.
This site is absolutely critical to the Coromandel community. With State Highway 25A down, this is the only available eastern seaboard route through to Whitianga. So the Macbeth to Potiri underslip occurred during Cyclone Gabriel. Things like that often originally show up as cracks in the road. We respond in terms of keeping traffic off the cracks. We bring in our geotechnical engineers and we begin to ascertain the risk that those cracks or the start of a catastrophic failure might pose. And in the case of the Apotiri underslip, the road did fail in terms of beginning with the outside shoulder and guardrail slipping down the bank, and then that rapidly increased to the entire southbound lane.
Wow. So just describe what it looked like.
There was a very large landslip down the bank. It probably projected well over 50 metres into the bottom of the valley. But the large face itself was approximately 20 metres from top to bottom. That encompassed the entirety of the north and southbound lanes.
So describe to me how you come up with a solution.
So if time is your friend, generally in a process like this, if this was a pre-identified site that we would need to come up with a design solution for, there would be concept options submitted to Waka Kotahi, including potential prices and program implications. They would then be reviewed by Waka Kotahi, a selection made and a detailed design or designs produced, and then that would be implemented either by Higgins or by another selected contractor. In this kind of instance, time was certainly not our friend. We needed to act as quickly as possible. So we were able to come up with what's known as a practitioner's solution, which was then verified by the Waka Kotahi subject matter expert for geotechnical stuff on the site itself. That option was a gravity wall, so that means it is layers of engineered material. So
like
that's
what?
an agreed standard of rock that is then compacted. It is then layered with a layer of geogrid material, which is in this case, a plastic, almost checker pattern, I suppose you would say, almost like what you'd hang on your garden fence to run the plants up. Stuff you buy from the garden shop, it's reminiscent of that. And so that's laid in layers. More material is placed on top, compacted to the right specifications, another layer of geogrid, more rock, etc., until you get up to height.
So if I was going to drive along that road, can you explain for me simply what I would see that would be different from what I'd normally see? Like,
once the wall is completed, you won't see anything different. You will see a large bank cut on the northbound side of the road, on the western side of the road. It's stepped backwards to provide what's known as a bench. So that's if material falls from the upper slope, it's caught halfway down the slope on a large bench, and that bench is about 4 to 5 metres wide in that location. And then a subsequent slope down to the road level. On the wall side, you're effectively driving on top of the gravity wall itself on those layers of compacted material. And you'll see a guardrail and some curb and channel. If you were to look down the face, if you were to park the vehicle and be looking down the face of that block wall, what you would see is steps going down approximately 10 metres, so a stepped face of the blocks to provide a means for future maintenance people to be able to easily get down the wall to be able to either, say, jet a blocked culvert or to be able to inspect the wall itself.
How many workers would you have on a site like that?
So the site has a permanent traffic management crew in place. So the crew stays in Tairua or Whangamata, and they do some really, long and when it's raining and it's horrible, quite arduous shifts running the traffic light setup that we have in place there.
Like what? How long? How long do they spend doing a shift?
So their shifts are approximately 12 hours.
Whew, okay.
We then have the excavator crews working on the site itself. So generally there'll be one or two pieces of heavy equipment working on the site at a time. You've got to appreciate the fact that it's quite a constrained, tight area to be working in. So you have the excavator placing material or placing blocks. You might have a roller working in conjunction with that, or another excavator or other construction plant moving around on that face at once. You then have spotters who are helping to make sure the equipment is working in the right area. On top of that, you have the trucks which are bringing in all of the backfill material, and they're basically 2 or 3 trucks running to a local quarry constantly on the site.
The road's now open, but it's down to one lane in places and controlled by traffic lights. But the bigger headache is over on State Highway 25A.
A vital highway connecting the east and west coast of the Coromandel Peninsula may take up to a year to reopen. State Highway 25A was closed by a massive slip, adding considerable time to drivers' journeys.
In May, the then Transport Minister Michael Wood announced how they were going to get the road back open.
Waka Kotahi has confirmed to me, and I am confirming today, that we have determined that a bridge is the right solution to fix State Highway 25A, based on the ability to build back better and to do so as quickly as possible.
Rob Campbell from Waka Kotahi explains how they eventually landed on this option.
Oh, look, initially, obviously, our first instinct is to try and reopen the road. Now, that's an extreme end of the damage that these events can cause. And it actually wasn't caused by the cyclone, it was the storm before it. So, when that first slipped, our instant reaction was to, right, what can we do to reopen and get this safe access through there? But very quickly on that one, it became obvious that there was a much bigger problem that we could solve quickly. So we had to go to let's have a think about how we can do this well and do it properly so we can build back a resilient access in there. And that needed an awful lot of information. So when you get to the stage of quite complicated reinstatements, which this is, you need to look at all the options. In this case, we always described it as you can build back up, you can go over, or you can go around. We need to look at all of those 3 options in some detail to understand, well, which one's going to be the one that allows us to get access back through there as quickly as we could, knowing that it would not be as quick as we would like it to be.
You had 3 options, did you? And how did you decide which one was going to be the best option?
Oh, there's so many things to look at when you're looking at this. The first and most important really is what are you building on? The geotech, before you build anything of a substantial, you need to be building off sort of good foundations and footing. So we need to do an awful lot of work to understand where is the good material. So we need to put piling rigs and drill rigs in there to do some swimming so we could find where's the rock, essentially where's good material. And what we found in there is that whole area, there's not a lot of good material anywhere. On the road corridor itself, we found rock about 30 metres below the bottom of the slip, which is 20 metres below where the road was. So we need all that information. You also need to understand, well, if you're going round, who owns that land? How significant is that land? Is it multiple owners? Is it a single owner? We also needed to understand the cultural significance of that, the ecological difference. Is another route going to be consentable? Would you be able to get permission to do that road? And actually, in terms of the structures that you might use, if you're going to fill up a road that's got a big hole like that, you need hundreds of thousands of cubic meters of material. Where's it going to come from? Where will you take the material that you're going to dig out?
So you chose a bridge in the end. Why was that?
Because he gave us that best mix, it's the quickest. That was one of the overriding criteria for us, was how quickly can we do this? So it was the quickest option for us.
Well, quick's still slow, isn't it? I mean, when's it going to be open? When's your predictions?
We're looking, it'll be next year before it's open, next calendar year. We're not quite exactly sure when, but we're working at pace. So no, it's not quicker. We knew this was never going to be a quick fix, unfortunately. We'd like it to have been, but the reality is the situation is that's not going to happen. So this was still the quickest option.
Wow.
And look, we get how destructive that is to the community. Many of our staff actually are involved up there. The contractors that we use, they live that area. They know how difficult this is. So it's the best of some not great options, quite frankly. But that's why we're doing the bridge. It gives us the most certainty as well. So once you're out of the ground, you've got the foundations for your bridge in place, then you're in control of everything. You're in control of the steel, the supports, the concrete, the road itself. Every other option, you're really dealing with natural materials, and the weather has a huge effect. So, obviously, what sort of winter will we have? It's likely to be wet. We don't know that for sure. All the other options would require us to work through winter with soil and earth and rocks. That's quite uncertain how much we get done. With the bridge, you get a lot more certainty.
So where exactly are we at now with the repairs?
So the contractors, we've let the contracts, detailed designs are all going on.
Jacqueline, there's been so much over your side of the North Island, hasn't there been? There's just been so much. I mean, what really stands out for you in terms of the repairs?
The one that stands out for me is the Hikawai Bridge, which is up between Tolaga Bay and Tokomaru Bay, up north of Gisborne.
4 months after Cyclone Gabrielle caused widespread damage to infrastructure around the North Island, a crucial link to the East Coast State Highway 35 has been reconnected today with the opening of the Hikawai Bailey Bridge.
During Cyclone Gabrielle, that bridge was completely washed away. It's a 80-plus metre span bridge across the Hikawai River, and that was always going to be a long-term fix. It's not easy trying to span 80 metres of river. And the criticality there for us was the severance of the community. So Tokomaru Bay was isolated because north of them, the Mangahuini Gorge had also isolated them and trapped them. But the one thing that stood out was actually a local contractor up there started doing some talking and doing some work, and he actually initiated the building of the bypass track, which is now called Piro Road. But this local contractor, being one of the community and supported by us, worked to open this bypass road while we could carry on designing and getting our Bailey Bridge up and running, which we have since done. But from our point of view, that Bailey Bridge was probably a very complex design, and then installation. Trying to find hard ground is difficult. We planned to drill the piles for this Bailey Bridge 12 metres. They went down 32 metres until we could hit firm ground that they could get into.
What was the detour like? Did you have to build a whole new road with that contractor, and what kind of material did that go through?
So that was literally digging through the side of a hill and on a local farm and a Piro station, and with the local iwi. And yeah, so it was a gravel road. It wasn't a nice road, but it was access. It wasn't your usual state highway network, but it gave the community that access that was needed. So it was on traffic management. So the whole road, you had to wait at the lights at one end and travel it, and so it was only single lane the whole way, the few kilometres that it is. But it was literally cutting into the hillside of a local farm.
Nuts. Sounds nuts. But did you still need a bridge to kind of go over the river, though?
They could bypass it with the track that they used, which was quite impressive.
So, but Bailey bridges aren't a permanent fix either, are they?
No, they're not. But the putting the Bailey Bridge in has given us time to, I guess, look at what that future long-term solution is. We know that the Hikawai River came up multiple metres. I think it was close to 20 metres it rose. And with the way the climate is going and the rainfall that we continue to get up, that area on the east coast is putting a like-for-like bridge back the right decision. And so we're going through all that work at the moment and how we can build resilience back into our network. As Rob mentioned, we need to build back things that will remain, and so we are not in this situation again.
Do you have to fight for funding at all? I mean, it also almost sounds like you're competing against yourselves for the money to fix everything up.
Well, I was going to say, ultimately, of course, our funding comes from the government, and we make allowances in each 3-year funding period. One of the things that the government in the last couple of funding periods has been really clear on is they want us to start looking at climate adaptation and starting to develop strategies and concepts of what we might do differently going forward in the future. That plan is being developed now. It's early days for it. We call it tirarangi. The idea of that plan is to present to government options of how we might manage and deal with climate change and climate adaptation going forward. So that plan is by around 2035 to have established a different way of working, a new way of looking at this, to be building things differently, to be looking at where we need to maybe retreat from rising sea levels or managing high rainfall differently.
Anything specific you can say as to how roads might look different in the future?
Oh, there's a whole range of things. So in some cases, is the road in the right place? In a highly vulnerable place and actually should be somewhere else. So that's the sort of thing you could look at. Those are very expensive options. Obviously, you can't do that everywhere. So then it's how do you make sure the assets you have, that the culverts are big enough, the bridges are strong enough, that we've protected the abutments to the bridges so they don't wash out. So you're adapting the type of infrastructure you have. Do you need to lift bridges so they're out of the water? And how the water drains away is done in a different way. There's a whole range of different things you can do to adapt for climate change. And each case will be different. And part of that, of course, will be the value for money, the investment. How much money can you put in and where's the right place to spend that? It's a very tricky thing to do. And every government, I think, around the world is wrestling with it now.
So this is the worst you've seen it in your 20 years?
The worst in my 20 years, yes. Waka Kotahi, or Higgins is the lead contractor for Waka Kotahi, had to rebuild the Thames coast after a huge storm event in January 2018.
Wet and wild summer weather is causing disruption across the North Island's Coromandel Peninsula. Flooding and slips have closed the region's main highways, cutting off travellers, with many other roads down to just a single lane.
While that was a massive project and a huge undertaking and really did stress and strain the Coromandel communities, it's lots of individual towns through it, but the Coromandel as a whole, we didn't lose a key route like we have with State Highway 25A. A route just didn't disappear, and that was a one large event, not 3 major storm events within 1 month of January alone, with preceding storm events in November and December, followed up by a whole raft of events through April, May and June, which in themselves were, I guess you would term them, qualifying storm events in the guidance issued by government for dealing with funding and dealing with storms. So it's just this constant run of weather-related things that are, in a sort of a boxing analogy, you're sitting there and the blows just keep coming. You just make sure that you are blocking and reacting and counter-punching as best you can.
That's it for today. I'm Tom Kitchen. The Detail is supported by the Public Interest Journalism Fund. Today's episode was engineered by Phil Bench. Our producers are Sarah Robson, Bonnie Harrison and Alexia Russell. Thanks to Rob Campbell, Jacqueline Hankin and Ben Buttermore. Ka kite anō.